We're back here where HeroesHearth finds themselves up 2-0, but more importantly, Mephisto's coming next week, and I've been asking for this hero for 2 years, Dreadnought. That's all that matters. That's all we're going to talk about for the rest of the day.
When do I get the hero I've been asking for 2 years? Blizzard, please.
What is the hero?
I don't know, because I don't keep track enough lore of other games for me to actually desire one. For a long while, my answer was like a roguelike character, and then they made Valeera, so I was like, I don't have an answer anymore.
Valeera still...
a stealth support, you know, hit it with the...
Tyrande.
No.
Yes, she's coming back with Shadowstalk, but more importantly, we're going to game number 3 here. We're going to find out what battleground we're going to. Dreadnought is a happy camper knowing that Shadowstalk reverting some of those changes with that stealth. Endemic Dreadnought taking us, though, to Tomb of the Spider Queen.
I am very happy that we are getting that back, actually, on the Tyrande there. Endemic, though, going to Tomb of the Spider Queen here. Not too surprising. Mike Udall generally is shot caller and, you know, kind of player. His teams have been more prone to sticking to Tomb of the Spider Queen, so I'm not surprised to see that. By no means is HeroesHearth uncomfortable with that, though. Probably one of the better, not only teams overall in North America, but just in Tomb, they're very comfortable with that as well. So I'm looking for some, you know, kind of oomph, some flavor here from Endemic here, knowing that games 1 and 2, especially game 1, looked good for the first half of it, and then kind of got out of control. Their map selection, everything's on the line here.
It's surprising. This has been the most picked map, or one of the most picked maps for HeroesHearth. So we're seeing a bit of a change up here. It's kind of a mixed bag when we see Endemic picking it up, but as you said, in past, these have been battlegrounds that Michael Udall teams have done well on. We'll see how it does here. It also brings up the question that, you know, we've seen a diverse draft so far of different heroes showing up, but now Jaina, somewhat absent during the Clash, not a lot of Jaina, but this has been one of Jaina's better battlegrounds and something that we've seen. And then something that we saw Eastern Clash bring us was a Kael'thas on Infernal Shrines, but that Nazeebo was picked here on Tomb of the Spider Queen.
Kael'thas is a good talking point that I would like to see more of in North America. I'm not sure we'll end up getting a hero in this situation, but I wouldn't mind something of the like there. Again, to kind of have that for Endemic as we see a Deckard ban coming out. This is not a battleground that I would look at the same kind of situation to where the white means power spike maybe will come out. I don't think North America is going to transfer over to the Karzim playstyle so heavily, so it's going to be interesting to see where Endemic wants to prioritize their support, and even when they do, who is it?
Got Stukov, still a hero that, with some of the changes, have taken away some of the oppression that we know that you could use with that infinite growing arm, some of the changes that will come in. Diablo being taken off here by HeroesHearth. We know how strong that hero was at the Clash, and one of the easier battlegrounds, of course. You get souls the traditional way through minions, but you can also get them other ways now with the rework, but definitely a lot easier for Diablo on this one, especially when we look at stun potential. Maiev finally getting the ban.
Getting the ban, and I can't help but feel like HeroesHearth has got to feel, you know, thankful for that, purely based on, I feel like a lot of the momentum gained in game number 1 was based on that Maiev, not only because, you know, the numbers that you were kind of given before, but I feel like when you said that and then watching them play against Maiev, I feel like one of the biggest problems HeroesHearth has is when they see a Maiev on the other side, they very rarely are second guessing their positioning whenever they get the initiation on their opponents, and then almost always you see, you know, the shadow comes out, they get the follow-up 3-man tether, and it's like all of HeroesHearth Esports, they thought they were winning the fight, and it quickly turns. So taking that away, not going to have that problem at least available. Deckard's the only other player or character that I feel like does that really well, and he's banned out too. So 2 counters at least off the table for Endemic.
Oh, Genji making a return here. It has been one of Biggie's strongest heroes traditionally. We know he has a big impact on that hero. Something that I remember there was a Tomb of the Spider Queen game one time with Biggie just ripping through people, and it was like, Genji let through. Let's not let him through anymore. We'll see if he can maybe recreate some of that magic here. Get some of that magic juice.
Puts a lot of pressure on his shoulders, though, considering it is Tomb of the Spider Queen and that he is the Genji. So his off-lane pressure or his 3-2 split in his lane rotations from Endemic pretty much have to be on point from the start of the game. And again, this is what we kind of asked from them in game number 1, and in the mid-game we saw them kind of give up that mid-game pressure that they needed to be successful there. Tomb of the Spider Queen is far more difficult than any other battleground to identify those elements, to be able to maintain that pressure and maintain that kind of control. So what I'm just trying to highlight here is that though I do like the direction we get from Endemic, this is just painting a very improbable picture based on what we've gotten from them so far in this series.
I think it's important to note that one of the old combos that we would see was that Genji Chromie combo on something like Tomb of the Spider Queen. More prominent in EU, but it did show up here from time to time. Chromie, this is the changes to Chromie, as we're going to see the Muradin ban. But for Endemic, there's still the Garrosh available if they need that frontline tank, maybe that initiation for the taunt. But as you had mentioned, and we've been talking about already, the Anubrak is great at getting the dive and creating a stationary target for Genji to potentially swift strike through. We'll see if that comes in, especially knowing that Johanna is not as easy to take down in this situation. There's our Nazeebo.
I'm sorry, but we get the Nazeebo, but I don't feel the same way about the little Nazeebo in this type of situation here, Jay Howe. A lot of what I just, harped up on my last point, Nazeebo doesn't do that. He is so the opposite of the playstyle, and this is one of those moments where I get torn, and it's like your opening is so much skirmish-oriented, packing the punch, bringing the fight level 1, and then you've got a guy who's just going to throw out jars until 20 minutes, and then he's going to be a huge problem. But it's like, but then what is Genji going to be at that threshold? Yes, you could argue, well, it's a curvature of spiking, right? Genji, oh man, we got so much more to talk about. As you say, the Genji falls off, the Nazeebo comes in, but it doesn't typically work out that way. So I don't know if that is going to be enough at this point in time. Zombie walls are not as impactful, especially knowing that we got an Abathur and a Tracer picked up in the last rotation.
Who do you even dare? I mean, Condemn can pull everything in. Tahaka.
Slow. You need like an ETC, actually. This is one of the few situations where I would promote picking an ETC because that Abathur Tracer pick, the slower the game, the better for Endemic. Okay, slow, but not exactly the direction you would expect. I like this, a little bit more curious when it comes to the team fighting, and definitely more stoppable when looking at the heroics.
Boy, things got spicy.
They did. They got a little wild, huh?
I don't even know what to make of post-second ban at this point. And we get a Nazeebo Malfurion. And you think Malfurion no longer has Ice Block, so we get a Tracer coming out, but we get an Abathur. Not just an Abathur Tracer, which we saw in HeroesHearth's fateful last game that they lost on Dragonshire, but we get it this time on Tomb of the Spider Queen, which is not, I think the last person I've seen it do it on Tomb of the Spider Queen is maybe ADRD over in Europe, and that's about it.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, and normally when you would see this, I would argue, well, that has got to be with heavy emphasis towards pressure towards bottom lane. It's going to be picking on them and making sure they have the kill potential, but that's what Genji's job has to be throughout this game. So I feel like the Abathur Tracer is just going to be, it's going to be a Genji tracker, and it just goes, Genji, you're not going to have fun with your entire time. As long as you keep track of his flow and his rotations, they aren't worried about the early game. But then late game things get a little bit wild. Where at first I was like, in the later stages with this Nazeebo, how do I feel? But they commit to a solo support Abathur. And I'm no wizard. I haven't done all the numbers. I haven't gotten to play this matchup that much, but I'm pretty confident a late game single Spider will out-trade a shield pretty frequently.
We're gonna find out. It's time for game number 3. Seeing if this solo support Abathur can bring it to a close here for HeroesHearth. And we've seen the Abathur ban in the first 2 games, and this is why, as Endemic, they're going to see if they can deal with it. I'm just wondering, what in the world can you possibly kill for Genji? And where do your spiders land?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question to ask, right? It's like, what do you do in the early game? And the answer is for Endemic, you don't. You just let it go, because once the Abathur was picked up, the only concerns that you have is the early game skirmishing and major macro pressure, which between the Phoenix, the Tracer kill potential with the Abathur, and keeping track of the Urel Genji type trade on the bottom half of the battleground, it should be pretty reliable for HeroesHearth Esports to depend on that. So Endemic, that's why I said they needed a slower warrior, expecting the ETC over the Tyrael, but they both make the same thing happen. Get to the later stage of the game without losing those trades, and then rely on your late game Nazeebo spike. And it should be noted that originally I go, this is a hole in Endemic's comp until you get the Abathur, and then suddenly it changes the entire approach for this game for Endemic. So this has been a doozy, but we'll see how it happens here, as we already have the off-lane pressure being displayed by McIntyre in that bottom lane. And Endemic keep up the 1-4 standard.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that you can do. Obviously, having the Phoenix gives you the flexibility to have wave clear in multiple lanes, but this is going to be a good job for BKit on that Tyrael to provide that shielding, try and win out those lanes. And as you pointed out, Arthlon on the Tracer does give you that early game kill potential, not necessarily through the pulse bomb, but through the overall continued harassment that we'll potentially be seeing.
And so if Endemic really wants the next level, this early laning situation, what they should be doing is recollecting themselves over mid and then making a transfer towards bottom. And giving up the pressure on the top half, making sure that their bottom lane can remain even. It's about every 1 or every 2 lanes, you want to stagger it to go the opposite side to be able to match that trade, because otherwise HeroesHearth Esports is still gaining just about as much out of the earlier stages, and the biggest thing that Endemic needs to be focusing on is stalling it out. At first, again, based on how the draft went, that was a very different approach, but now should be the thought process, and that's what we see with the transfer down below. This is, I mean, it's not revolutionary, but I'm impressed with the early stages here from Endemic.
Caster Curse, right on cue. Somewhere back there, bro, Sidon's like, look, I'm about to click on this. Dread, I hope you don't finish this sentence. Well, too bad. Caster Curse is real. First blood here by HeroesHearth.
And that was taking advantage of the rotation towards bottom that I wanted to see from Endemic. I still would say that it was a very clever transition, and so far, their laning process has been, well thought out, considering the adjustments of HeroesHearth. But losing to Zebo is going to be a setback. Not too big of one here, as the Web Weavers are going to be turned in. 21 gems on the side of HeroesHearth Esports. As long as Endemic can slow that down, make it even towards the 10 fight, and ideally actually get the first Web Weaver phase into their favor, they're going to be okay. The biggest thing you don't want to do if you're Endemic is make the mistake of turning in pre-7, pre-8, and then not forcing a siege over a fort. The minute that happens, you're going to have the mule problem. You're going to have this constant Sky Temple trade-off that you never want to deal with, especially knowing the wing conditions, again, are kind of blurry on Team of the Spider Queen.
It's been tricky. I mean, obviously we saw the heavy emphasis on fort walls prior to the experience changes, and you and I noted the early Web Weaver phases were so strong. It was weird though, because if you got them too early, then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, this isn't worth it. But now it's even more noticeably so, is depending on your timing. I think it was at Western Clash, I saw a team pick up Web Weavers at like 4.5 minutes and it had almost no impact. And it's like, yes, getting the first turn in can be good, and you got to get, but you have to confirm structures. You got to have the sieging capabilities. I don't think Endemic really has that in the early game. Obviously, you can get the push power with this, but there's so much on the other side with HeroesHearth.
So far, pressure over bottom, though, from HeroesHearth Esports has been working out. Endemic hasn't really been able to do too much when it comes to the answers towards that lower section of the battleground. They have made the transition, as we said with the Giants before, but other than that, big impact has actually just been bullied around with that Tracer to Haka matchup, and that is a huge win, considering not only is it HeroesHearth Esports winning when it comes to the kills with that one pick within Zebo because of that rotation, but they're winning on turn-ins too. This is, again, those winning small things on every part of the battleground for HeroesHearth Esports that is going to open this game up out of control. And with the adjustments in the draft in the solo support Abathur, this is anything but what you should expect at the earlier stages of this game.
Not able to get the denial there, and B-Kid now, he's in trouble. I don't know if B-Kid actually makes it out of here alive. There's gonna, just able to shield up. This is something I've never seen, or at least I don't remember the last time I saw in the Zebo. Hexed Crawlers at level 4, not going into your trait where you get the bonus health and mana, and it's just a cumulative total over time, which seems to be the #1 on this one. But this gives you 1% of your health and mana back whenever they attack an enemy hero. And it goes back to our earlier conversation in draft. What hero are you landing these jars on? Because there's no real, Johanna and Dahaka are the easiest targets you can get. And in the middle of a team fight, when it's desperation time, can you land them?
I think another concern to highlight is that there is no major crowd control to enable those spiders to get a lot of damage out. Malfurion Roots is actually the only thing to lock anybody down to make sure the spiders get as much damage output as they possibly can. Mikey Doll trying to cut away will eat a pulse bomb here. Arthlon with that Abathur hat. It's only a matter of time there. Beautiful Brew forcing out the recall there. Now McIntyre maybe has a brush stock out. No crowd control available, and he will survive. But HeroesHearth here getting a lot there out of that first Web Weaver phase. Great punishment over that bottom fort.
Getting a fort with your first Web Weavers at 5 minutes in, just under 5 when they spawned, with an Abathur composition. It's not something we get to analyze too often, but if you were to present that to me before this started, I would say, yeah, it's not going to happen. But it did happen.
And that's, again, I want to bring back to the laning situation. When we looked at how the lanes kind of unfolded for HeroesHearth with the 3-2 split. Hold up, though. Genji going to get locked down by that drag, unable to swift strike out. Dansky trying to get a retreat here. That's going to be another kill. 10 still not picked up here for HeroesHearth, but definitely creeping as they get those 2 extra kills. Couple of gems lost by Endemic. Now about 15 out of range for a Web Weaver phase themselves.
That's tough.
It's gone from good to great if you're a HeroesHearth Esports fan. Not so much for Endemic as this game is kind of furthered.
Yeah, they've managed 6 total gems turned in, and they've continued to lose them throughout the process. And with this amount of a lead that we see from HeroesHearth, we've seen the rotations from the Genji, things of that nature. We don't even see Mule picked up here. They're not even worried about that threat there or the potential long-term of this game. They're going to control the rotations, get the slow on that, as you can see already having an impact there. As McIntyre comes over to get the interrupt onto Cure, and with level 10 here, Endemic, I think they got to get out using that old Druins.
Yeah, it's in their best interest to just try and hold on to 10 as long as they can. The race to 10 without losing anybody in the process in a web weaver phase, possibly to boot. Unlikely to be able to deny all the web weavers, though, as you see channel attempts from everybody here, but not enough to confirm, at least not yet, as Crowan still starting it up. Who has the rest of these gems here, Jay?
It's got to be Tracer coming over. Yeah, she's kind of absent on the mini-map there, but it's got to be coming in for that turn-in. They do have enough. They also have this camp here. They can dive right behind this. Blast Shield is available if they want to rip it. The other thing to consider here, we're contemplating Salvo or Planet Cracker. Planet Cracker does do well to defend against web weavers, but it can also follow up a tremendous amount of CC, which you're only going to get through really the Blast Shield and a drag. So it's a commitment, and they want to go with it. Just missed the mark on that one, though.
Planet Cracker is just, you know, a big line to be worried about at that point in time. The line of scrimmage there. Endemic was able to make it back. The biggest thing is that HeroesHearth has been able to defend these giants the entire time here as these web weavers have descended, making this bottom lane a high threat as the Knight's still over on mid. Cure doing his best to be able to rid of those as this bottom fort, or keep front wall, excuse me, is already going to be rid of here as Endemic still out of reach for their heroics. Jay, at this point, I would not be surprised if we see just a split push Abathur build. Like, the lead is so far ahead on Tomb that you can just keep up this oppressive advantage with these skirmishes, just going into those. That in mind, most people would argue will still dread, you know, going with the hat build is going to provide more of those team fights that you're absolutely necessary and needed. But that is how big of a lead HeroesHearth Esports has at this point in time.
Well, we're about to find out because it would start here at 13.
Give me the
no
Locust Splash auto attacks. Dang it.
They're just getting leashed all over the place here.
Giving him yeah, no joke, dude. I keep walking into my mic
Dreadnought
cord.
forgets he's not on a wireless headset.
And
so.
I walk into my mic cord. Welcome back to the HGC.
Don't worry. I started off the day that way as we find our way back in. And HeroesHearth, they're finding their way back in here in week number 6, our first back from the clashes. And Endemic Dread, they're still sitting on only 6 turned in. Cure looking for a fight. Here we go.
Judgment's going to go in on the back line with that Ravenous Spirit, gaining quite a bit of value into the choke. The Planet Cracker thrown down. Mikey Dahl is going to end up dropping X-Strike on the back line. Big impact, unable to escape there. Swift Strike attempt available, but 3 members of Endemic end up going down here in HeroesHearth Esports. Looking to take advantage here of this middle night camp, likely to at least get some poking and prodding there onto the keep. And now 16 gems away from a web weaver phase.
Yorel got a substantial turn in. Now they're only 1 away. But is it going to be too little too late? Because at this point, you don't have a lot in reserve. And so you're going to lose a keep here mid, which means that your mid lane pressure is basically nil. And so now you start thinking, all right, we just are going to use it to establish control, or at least reestablish some form of control over the map. But then you look up and it's 15 to 11. 16 is almost here for HeroesHearth. They almost have a turn in. And for Endemic, do you even get another chance for a turn in? It's just HeroesHearth in the driver's seat in this game. No support needed.
The beautiful thing about this composition from HeroesHearth Esports is it pretty much needs to snowball the game in this control, in this manner. I was so worried about the later stages of the game, but with their off-lane pressure, with Endemic not responding to it proper, and then now that they made it to the stage, they are very, very oppressive, and there's very few things that can be done. Amazing drag there over the wall from McIntyre, maximum range. Ends up blocking down Mikey Dahl for the first kill there, second with that Feeding Frenzy value. Isolation there, Dansky ends up going down, and web weavers were picked up for Endemic in the downtime, but it is merely just going to be a distraction here for HeroesHearth.
I'll be surprised. Endemic just getting to 13 seems like a reach. They have catapults for HeroesHearth defending mid lane. We know that's going to be neutralized quite a bit. Bot lane is pushed out all the way to the keep, which means those web weavers aren't going to make it very far. Top lane will be worked on momentarily. HeroesHearth, 16 will be picked up in a moment, and just dominance. I mean, there's no other way to put it at this point. This is sheer dominance from HeroesHearth.
And a lot of that is down to the early game stages of how it was played by Endemic, and then compositionally they needed to be successful over the beginning half, or more importantly, just stopping HeroesHearth from being the absolute bullies that they were over the laning phase and that first web weaver phase. An Abathur composition, first web weaver phase with no support can get the first fort against you. That is just, again, something that we should not be able to hold true, and part of the reason that this game is as dour as it is. But HeroesHearth Esports, now that the web weavers have cleaned, Endemic may round the 13 talent tier, but they'll be able to force the web weavers themselves.
See if they make a play towards a camp, maybe try and just empower push. Go for that big play now. I mean, you're going to have 16 to 13 during this push. Do you get a camp? Do you get siege? Do you get knights? It's just a matter of the world is your playground right now. They are going to send Tahaka to the bottom to get that siege camp. And we know that that should help guarantee a keep, but it's a matter of HeroesHearth. At this stage of the game, 1 keep minimum, 2 keeps max, but not max, but core should be max at this point.
Yeah, and let's say in a worst case scenario, all that doesn't happen. HeroesHearth Esports, because they've just burnt the rest of the web weavers and their experience should be such a big advantage. Boss is their next call immediately after that, and then you either force the lethal on the win condition or at least confirming that secondary keep. But look at this transition, actually. HeroesHearth, you can tell that they're more concerned with that play possibly than any other here. Cure maybe out too far. Arthlon is going to be there. Look at that McIntyre with the brushstock isolation, drag follow-up. That was clean, ladies and gentlemen, picking up the pick onto Yrel, and HeroesHearth now free siege here with this web weaver.
McIntyre is about to go make a name change after this series to just straight up playmaker. Because dude is killing it. The isolations, I mean, Ardent Defender wasn't even able to be used there. There wasn't much CC needed after that. Now we're looking at keeps going down. And with Endemic, they have almost nothing to defend this onslaught. The clone is out. HeroesHearth is going to go directly to the core, and they are trying to end this right now. It doesn't look like anything Endemic can do.
Shielding gone, 60% and counting. Crowin seems to be the focus there, but as we said, BBJ still has the clone McIntyre there as well. 15% and 11-1 in terms of kills there. HeroesHearth Esports take down game number 2, because I am obviously way off my mark.
Well, you know somebody on that team is reporting Crowin for feeding that game at 1 kill at the end. Unacceptable. I mean, that right there, HeroesHearth, you know, slow start to game number 1, Dreadnought, but as game 2 and game 3 went on, it seemed like they were just getting started, maybe waking up and getting reacquainted with the league.
Yeah, and though that is a very pleasant surprise, I feel like, when looking towards HeroesHearth, not so much in, wow, HeroesHearth getting a 3-0, that isn't, you know, the craziest thing. It's just based on the trends we've seen when a team goes perform internationally, when they come back to North America, and where they end up standing. But at the same time, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little disappointed in the play that we got from Endemic. It didn't feel like, for the amount of time that they've kind of been able to sit on reserve and how much promise, especially players like Cure and Dansky, I feel like have, they didn't really seem to move in with that kind of level of lethality we've gotten from them in part number 1.
Is it me, or did it seem more draft than anything? I think the Tahaka Maiev was a little off. The Sergeant Hammer with the Phoenix felt a little off, and it just didn't seem polished. I mean, maybe that works in other circumstances, but the draft by HeroesHearth seemed to have a lot of answers to deal with those. The last one, I don't know how you prepare for the Abathur Tracer and zero support comp. That's something HeroesHearth is known for, and it seemed like the Nazebo, you had the opportunity to save that for your last pick. They went for it directly after that second ban, and HeroesHearth had a perfect answer. They said, well, you can't get spiders and you can't stack if you can't hit me, because you don't have anything to hit.
Yeah, you have nothing to be able to focus on, and that's like, you know, it's kind of the counter argument between double reset comps, right? You pick the Abathur, it removes that variable, so it's like, oh, you don't have more things to reset on, then you're going to be difficult to win that team fight. And I feel like it was, again, part of in the draft, like you were talking about, like the picks that we see from Endemic, but it felt a little bit more than that to me. That, yes, definitely the picks were a little bit off, but just purely like the off-lane pressure in that last game. I feel like that is standard in that type of situation. There's only one way the Abathur can play that early game effectively to be able to be, you know, a high-impact hero and not kind of deal with the Tomb of the Spider Queen trade-off. And it wasn't forced. And more importantly, it didn't even look like it was even that thought about. And that's where I guess I have a lot of concerns, because more often than not, if the execution isn't there, the thought process very much was. And for me, it felt like this team, it definitely didn't seem there at moments. And I only raised that concern because they had, again, some of the highest, I feel like, in part number 1. We looked at the decision-making and some of the cleverness behind it. So why did it, again, seem to struggle here after that kind of break?
Well, as you mentioned, they had the time to prepare. It seemed like things didn't go quite the way that they planned. Obviously, they're going up against North America's best, as HeroesHearth only dropped 3 maps during all of part 1, 21-3 record as a 7-0 match record. So things obviously tough to start out here, but for HeroesHearth, they answer the call. literally, against Nazebo in our match today. More importantly, we get to look forward to them versus Tempo Storm tomorrow. For Endemic, obviously, we know they had a 3-4 record coming into this weekend. They're 3-5 now. It's not completely out of Crucible range. Obviously, they talk about preparing for playoffs, but, we'll still have more to look forward to. LFM, of course, later. Simplicity, can they get things back on track? There's a lot of teams that might try and fight for that. So for Endemic, it's a rough start, but they have to make sure those wins that they expect to have, they're going to have to lock those in going forward.
Yeah, it's one as a team for them that they go into this weekend, and I feel like at the end of the week, no matter how the games went, you went, okay, we probably expected to not get too many wins off of the HeroesHearth, so it very much is not that big of a, kind of sell towards their future and looking at it. For me, again, a lot of it is the execution, or what I call the body language in game, right? Like there's the thought process that the team has, the decisions that they make, that is where the concern I think lies. And again, that is very much from me and what we ended up getting from them here today. And it could be maybe even just, kind of an off day from the roster, but they're one that I look at and I go, this could be, again, that kind of, new future of North America or possible competitors. And against HeroesHearth, though, they are the Titans of North America right now. I didn't expect that, again, post-Western Clash.
Well, we saw the Medivh ban in every single game against Endemic, and it's something you've pointed out. Most notably, you think Dansky is the best Medivh we have in North America, and there are some other players that can say around that, but it also showed up at the Clash quite a bit, and that seemed to be maybe a kryptonite of a team that Medivh can come out. Or is it potentially maybe Endemic was showing a lot of this in scrims, maybe something that started to come in during this preparation phase? Because it did seem off to me that we had different strategies coming out for both teams. But we do get a chance to talk to one of those players from HeroesHearth here. Crowan, we'll hear from him on what he thinks of some of these strategies. Crowan, welcome in, man. Congratulations on the win.
Thank you very much.
Well, Crowan, obviously you guys come out from the Clash, maybe not getting the results that you wanted, and you obviously have a double weekend right out of the gates. How important was it to come out right out, maybe put your mark on the league again by taking down Endemic and a 3-0 here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is disappointing for us in our Western Clash performance. We didn't do as well as we wanted to, but, the goal is now BlizzCon, and we got to just focus on that. So coming out with a 3-0 is really great, and we're going to look to keep rolling it forward and keep having 3-0s hopefully moving forward into the season.
Well, Crowan, obviously the mantra for your team for the first half of the year was constantly get better, and improve, and then you showed up to Mid-Season Brawl. You guys showed strength there. Then at Western Clash, some people out there were saying, hey, it's time to stop improving. It's starting to, hey, it's time to win. And then other times it's still improving for BlizzCon. Where does the team's mentality lie now when you start to look forward towards those BlizzCon aspirations?
I mean, I think going to the Western Clash was a little interesting because we knew that there was a chance for us to do very well. And so we kind of put this expectation onto us that I'm not sure if it was right or wrong, but I think that now we have a better sort of, a better look on where we want to be, focusing on. And I think that is still always going to be on improvement and having a sort of underdog mentality. Like we go in, we're going to play our best. If we lose, it's okay. If we win, that's great. And I think that this Western Clash was different than other tournaments because the way that we lost this tournament to us, we felt as though we outplayed ourselves as opposed to just losing to better teams. So that still keeps us hopeful. We know that we are still improving and we see that. So we're just moving forward from there.
Well, moving forward, you did. Good start off to today. I'm going to send you over to Dread.
Hey, Crowan, I just got questions mainly based on what you guys have done, if you focus on it whatsoever, or if it was just kind of natural from you guys' point of view of, going to the Western Clash, whether or not you met your own standards or not, but then performing back here in North America. It seems like most teams end up struggling, not coming out with the same emphasis, and you guys very much, I feel like, was maybe more demanding than it seems like you have ever been. What did you guys do to make sure that you were able to kind of overcome what seems like a pattern forming in NA?
Yeah, I think that some teams get discouraged from not having performances internationally, and it sort of creates a funk in their team. But we very early, after we lost, said that no, our focus, so we're still going very, very hard for BlizzCon. We know that we can do well, and I think it's just a mentality thing, and our team is very good at, having shared goals and working towards those.
So it seems like the mentality is something that is a lot coming out from you guys, especially when performing at the international level. And so one thing, you were talking about that pressure that you were able to put onto yourselves, or maybe the mentality you were adopting. I just wonder, is that kind of carefree mentality, do you gain any inspiration from teams like, I feel like, Ballistics at Eastern Clash #1, or again, kind of leftovers that we've gotten as of late at this Western Clash, or that is, again, more introspective and purely from you guys' own reflection?
I think we've looked at leftovers a lot and have been inspired by, they've been one of the lower seeds of Europe, but they come in and they get second place at both Western Clashes. So it's definitely something to take note. I know that Mobcio after the tournament tweeted about, expectations and his thoughts on that, and I thought that it was something that we all could, take from just, every single team in the world could take from Mobcio's perspective there. So shout outs to him for that.
That's really awesome to be able to hear, and good luck here going into the rest of the weekend here for HGC.
Thank you.
Kron, we know expectations from many public faces would say that they are high for your team, and expectations, when we look at the schedule for you guys, obviously you start out with the double weekend right out of the gate, 2 days, first 2 days. You get Tempo Storm tomorrow. When you looked at your schedule and you're saying, hey, look, we want to get that automatic qualifier towards BlizzCon, how early do you start looking at these games and the importance factor?
I mean, every single game is important. Like every single team is in the HGC, for a reason. But starting off with Endemic, and then tomorrow we have Tempo Storm. That's a little bit rough of a schedule. So thankfully we're able to 3-0 today. But we're going to be having equal preparation for every single match going forward. It's important, and we really want that first seed for BlizzCon. That is the goal.
What was the preparation for you guys like after Western Clash? Did you come home, maybe take a few days break? Or were you guys just right back to the grind? When you look at your schedule, obviously knowing you come in with that doubleheader, did you have time to take time off?
Yeah, we took a few days off. I think it's healthy to, it was a very intense couple of weeks leading up to the Western Clash. We had a boot camp. We were all just kind of like go, go, go. So we did take a couple of days to sort of reset, and I think it was very healthy for us. So we were able to come back, have that time and be refreshed, re-energized to go into the season and, have a performance that we did today.
Things look good for you guys today. Congratulations on that. Now's your time, familiar time for you, especially for shoutouts.
Thank you very much. Obviously everyone for supporting. It means a lot. Check out HeroesHearth.com, your resource for everything Heroes of the Storm related. We have some merchandise like these cool hoodies here. We got t-shirts, jerseys, everything you might need. Shout outs to our coach, Cawthon Luck, manager Renal, and esports psychologist Ramadi. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Congrats, Kron. Dreadnought clearly got some practice in for this team on their downtime preparing. They've got a major matchup tomorrow because, yes, they're the #1 team, but Tempo Storm, their only loss to HeroesHearth was against HeroesHearth. So for Tempo Storm, obviously they need to come in and prove their point, but for HeroesHearth, they need, if they take down Tempo Storm, that puts them in a good spot, a good race towards the automatic qualifier for BlizzCon.
And if you're HeroesHearth Esports, you got to be thankful in the fact that it feels like you just went through that series showing, I feel like, almost nothing. They drafted pretty meta. They drafted pretty standard according to what we can expect from them as a roster. So knowing that it feels like, any preparation you might give into your big matchup in week #1 of HGC North America, didn't have to show much against Endemic. So definitely got to feel good going against North America's second seed tomorrow.
We're not done yet for today. We are going to a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we will have LFM versus Simplicity.